In this chapter, we're going to talk about classes and objects. And in this particular video, we're going to get a glimpse of what classes are and what objects are. Now, I have a confusion between classes and objects as to where to start from. Should I start explaining about classes or should I start explaining about objects? But I thought it would be better to start with neither. Instead, I would start with methods. Now, if you go take a look at other tutorials, they may start by giving the definitions of classes and objects, which I feel at this point of time you may not be able to understand. My way of teaching is different. I'm going to give you a real-time example, and from that you can easily make out definitions. That makes more sense. Anyway, let's get started. Let's talk about methods. Let's say we have an e-commerce website, something like eBay or Amazon, that was written using Java, and let's say our code, our source code constitute of 2000 lines of code. It would probably be exceeding 1 million lines of code, but just for the sake of explanation, let's assume so. And the entire code is under one block. Now within this code we might have a set of instructions spanning across 10 to 20 lines that does a particular task. For example, add product to the cart. And there could be another set of instructions that does delete product from the cart. And there could be instructions on applying the coupon, or something like make payment, etc. Now we have a problem here. We are lacking code readability. Let's say you wanted to perform the same operation, add, at later point of time. Then you're going to write this set of instructions, 10-20 lines, again somewhere over here. That's going to increase the complexity and reduce the readability. The new programmer who will take a look at your program will definitely curse you. So what is the solution? We're going to create methods. If you are aware of functions in other programming languages, that's nothing but methods in Java. So what we essentially do is we're going to take out this set of instructions that does a particular task, separate it out, put it inside another block, and we're going to name this block something like addition or something like that. And whenever we need to execute this set of instructions, instead of writing all those 10 lines, we're just going to simply call this block of statements using this name, addition. Similarly, next time you'll have to do the same set of operations, then you're going to simply call this block using this name again. That will reduce 2000 lines of code into 50 lines. This will increase the readability. Also, the code is more organized. And this block of statements that I'm talking about is nothing but methods in Java. Now let's try to form a definition of a method. A method is nothing but a set of instructions in a block that does a particular task. And that block of statements will have a name tag to it so that we can use it to execute those block of statements. Let's go to our workbench and see how this works. Open the file named classes and objects under the project classes and objects. Now I'm going to simply copy paste the code from switch statement example that we talked about earlier. I'm just going to copy the code inside this block, the main block. I do Ctrl+C and paste it over here inside this main block. I'm going to save it. Now let's say we want to separate this statement out and put this inside another block. The first thing is to take this statement. This could be one or more statements, but in our example it's just one statement. We're just going to do Ctrl+X and we're going to take that statement out of this block like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to call this statement or statements from here. How do you do that? We need to give the statement or the set of statements a name. So for that we need to create another block using curly braces, and we're going to give it a name, something like addition. Now this block of statements is not aware of these two variables a and b, because a and b are initialized over here in a different block. So the scope of this variable are within this block. So what we're going to do is we're going to give parenthesis, something like that, and we're going to send these two variables from here. So first of all, let's put this over here and send a comma b, and since this is a statement by itself, we're going to end with a semicolon. We have sent a and b here, but we're not receiving it here. How do we do that? We're going to give the type of the variable int that we're expecting, int a and int b. Now this block of statements will be aware of these two variables a and b. We have another problem here. What's that? Whenever we execute a certain block of instructions, we're going to expect something out of it. Sometimes we don't. Here we're just doing system.out.println a plus b, and we're printing it. In this case, there is nothing that we want to give back to the block where we're calling this method from. So what we do is we say void, which means I'm not sending anything from this block of statements or from this method addition. In case if you want to send something, then you might want to use the keyword called return. We'll talk about it in detail at a later point of time. So for now, this is it. We have a proper method declared or defined, whatever you call it. There's one little twist here. Since this is a static block, we didn't talk about static block, but we will in a while. This has to be static. We'll talk about static keyword later point of time, but this is it. Now this will essentially does the same thing what we're doing here, but in this example we just have one instruction. Let's say these are 10 or 20 lines of code, then that would make perfect sense to use methods instead of writing the code over here. If you run this program, it's going to yield the same result. Let me save your time by not running it. Great. Now we understood what method is. It's essentially a block of statements that does a particular task, and we're going to give that block of statements a particular name, so that using that name we can execute that block of statements anywhere in the program. So next time we want to execute this set of statements, we're just going to do copy paste of this, Control C, and maybe we're going to put it over here. By the way, that's illegal to put it over here. Let's save the file. Great. Let's go back to our whiteboard. Now obviously we don't want the entire code to be under one file. Think about Amazon or eBay, where the source code would be in millions of lines of code. How could it be possible to manage the code if it is under one single file? Probably the entire code is split across multiple files, class files. So what we're going to do is we're going to create multiple files, essentially class files in Java. Say we're going to have a class file called product that has the methods that are related to product. For example, add product, remove product. And we're going to have another class that's going to do checkout. And this may constitute methods like apply coupon or maybe make payment. Now let's understand this in our example. So what we'll do now is we're going to take this method out from here, out of here to a different file. So for that, we need to create another class file. So let's do Control C and Control V. That will create a clone of this class. We're going to name this class as Maths class. I'm going to click Refactor, and we're going to get rid of this entire code in here. In fact, we're going to get rid of this entire block altogether. We don't need main method here. For the entire application, we'll be needing only one single main method. We'll talk about it later. But now let's move it over here first. I'm going to do Control X, cut it from there and paste it over here. We definitely will have an error here because the method is no longer existing here. So how do we call this method residing in another class? This is how we're going to do. I'm going to say somewhere over here, math obj stands for object, and we're going to create a new object using the keyword called new, and then again maths, typo error there. So what did we just do? We created an object. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to object-oriented programming language. This is what is object. Of course, we're going to talk about it in detail in a while. Now using that object, we can call that method by doing object.addition. Let's continue in our next video.